Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Thick Slices and Deep Cuts. Tonight's theme is going to be called Side Project Supergroups. So I've been wanting to do this for a while, and then I definitely was motivated to do it quickly when a couple of albums came out that I bought pretty much within a couple of weeks of each other. It was this new Liquid Tension Experiment album and also the new Transatlantic album. And both with Mike Portnoy on drums, and so I thought it's time to do the show on the Side Project Supergroups. And basically, I didn't even really know what a side project. I didn't even think about side projects or any of these things until I guess the late '90s or about 2000, when Mike Portnoy shows up with these two albums from Liquid Tension Experiment, and then right after that he's got two albums with Transatlantic. Those are the two big ones, and then obviously he continued with OSI, which was a cool project. So for several years there, from the late 90s through the mid 2000s, it just seemed like not only was he doing all that great stuff with Dream Theater, but he just had these cool side albums coming out all over the place with cool collaborations with people from, obviously Jordan Rudess, who wasn't even in the band at the time, but also Tony Levin of King Crimson, and then he's doing stuff with the guys from Fates Warning, John Arch, all these different projects, the guys from Flower Kings and Spock Spirit and Marillion and all these things. So, up until then, I guess I never thought about it, but I thought you're in one band at a time. But clearly that's not the case, and Mike Portnoy is certainly living proof that you can be in a dozen bands at the same time. But this episode's going to go long, so I'll try to keep it moving, because I've got a lot of bands. I think I don't even know the count, but it's over 25 bands that I'm going to talk about. So we'll just start with my top 5 bands, and I think I already mentioned it, but to me, in my world, this kind of starts the whole side project supergroups. You got that first Liquid Tension Experiment. They recorded, I think, in like a week. In '97, it came out in '98. There's Jordan Rudess with long hair still, not yet an official member of the band. Just an awesome, a lot of improvisation. That's a big part of the Liquid Tension Experiment sound. Just tons of improv. Writing on the fly, not really overthinking it too much. I think this is probably, we're doing a mini ranking, this is probably my favorite one just because of the sentimentality, but 2 is equally as good. I know Petrucci had to leave during the short session for the birth of one of his children, so there was a lot of improvisation where he's maybe not on it totally, or where he had to come back in later on. But this is killer too, so that'd probably be my number 2. And the new one that just came out, which has not only an hour of new material, which is awesome. It's like 22 years passed and they didn't miss a beat. It sounds just like they picked up where they left off. Mine has a second disc of A Night at the Improv, which is almost another hour of improvisations. Just awesome. Cool cover. So I'd probably rank them 1 is 1, 2 is 2, and 3 is 3, but they're all essential. Probably my favorite of the groups we're going to talk about. These guys were great. So there you go. That's probably my favorite one. We're kind of going in reverse order here, but Liquid Tension Experiment's number 1. I forgot to mention this. They did live in New York and live in LA. I think these set lists are almost identical. I think the one reason I like this one is I think the sound quality is a little more clear. They were playing in like a bigger auditorium in LA, whereas in New York it's definitely got that club sound. And they do Rhapsody in Blue on here, which they actually did a reworked version of Rhapsody in Blue for the new album too. So this covers songs from the first 2 albums, some new stuff, and a song that ends up on the 3rd album. So this is a killer video. So with that, we move into Transatlantic land. Again, by the time I even found out who Transatlantic were, much like with Liquid Tension Experiment, they already had 2 albums out. Boom Boom, 2000 and 01. These are great, just long songs, 30-minute songs. And then there was a break for a while they were doing their other main projects. But this is The Whirlwind in 09, probably my favorite album they ever did. If it's my favorite, this is a very close second, Bridge Across Forever from 01. I'm thinking just the importance of the first one, SMPTE, would be 3rd. And this new one, The Absolute Universe, I think is going to be 4th. Now you've got versions, Forevermore, which is a 2-disc version, which was the version Roina Stolt wanted, and I think Portnoy. And then there's a 1-disc version that Neil Morse wanted that also Pete Travis wanted. But Mike went ahead and blended both of the albums together to give you the ultimate mix, and that's what I got here on the Blu-ray. It really bums me out they put these little marks on the awesome artwork, but I have the ultimate version. So I don't have Forevermore or Breath of Life. I have the ultimate mix, which blends both. And this is really good. We're listening to it now. That's how I'm opening the show. But this sounds really good. I don't pretend to know all of it. It's a lot of musical information to tackle, and this took so long to get to me in the mail that even though it came out in March, it's kind of like a new release for me, right? You know, two weeks. I've had this for about 2 weeks now. And at 5, this is good. It'd probably be my least favorite, but I still like it. Kaleidoscope from 2014. I think Into the Blues, an awesome 25-minute one to open it. Black as the Sky is good. Lots of covers. You know, and again, Mike Portnoy. You know, another one of his awesome projects. Oh yeah, World Tour 2010. This is incredible, just a bunch of 20 and 30-minute songs, and they've got, as a 5th member, they've got Daniel Gildenlow from Pain of Salvation helping out on just percussion, guitars, little keyboards, just whatever, you know, kind of like a utility man on stage. So this is really good. I think this is them at their peak right here. Let's see. Oh, this may be my second favorite band. I mean, I love Transatlantic, but I probably listen to OSI, yet another Portnoy project, you know. This came out, I think, 03, recorded in 02. This is with Kevin Moore of Extreme Theater at this point. In fact, you can see the sticker. Jim Matheos of Fates Warning, Kevin Moore, Chroma Key, Extreme Theater, Mike Portnoy, with guest appearances from Steven Wilson and Sean Malone of Cynic and Gordian Knot. So this is cool. Kind of a different album for them as their career would go on. I think Portnoy was not too pleased with where the direction of this project went, but he did stick around for this album, Free, which came out in 06. This might be my favorite album they did. Joey Vera's on bass for this. Not any guest appearances here. It's just Kevin Moore doing cool vocals. Jim Matheos of Fates Warning doing, you know, those are the two main guys here. Then you got Portnoy and Joey Vera. I love this album. If it's not number 1, it's 2 by 09's Blood, which has Gavin Harrison of Porcupine Tree on here. You've got a guest appearance from Michael Ockerfeld doing vocals on one song, and Tim Bonus of No Man doing guest vocals on a song on the bonus track. Just really cool prog metal, just cool. Kevin Moore's voice is awesome. Probably my least favorite, but still cool, is the final one they did. I guess it's the final one they did, Fire Make Thunder. This is cool too. Classic OSI sound here at this point. You still got Gavin Harrison on session drums. I don't know what happened to Kevin Moore. You know, has anyone seen Kevin Moore? But it'd be cool if they picked this project up again. But even if not, they put out 4 cool albums. So I've always been a huge fan of OSI, kind of an influence. I wish I could do vocals kind of like Kevin Moore on there. Okay, moving on. Trying to get all the big bands out of the way first. I'm a huge fan of Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree, and so he did this project Blackfield with Aviv Geffen from Israel. Aviv is an accomplished artist in his homeland. I don't really know any of his other works, but I know that he's kind of a big deal in Israel. But these first 2 albums are what I cut my teeth on, 04 and 07. And I think the first one is the best, but the second one is right there with it. These first 2 are just so classic. And they did a DVD concert in New York City off of these 2 albums, so it's pretty much just tackling. It's the perfect time to do a video. They just focus on the 2 classic albums here. So Blackfield, anything Steven Wilson does is of quality for sure. This was the 3rd album in 2010, Welcome to My DNA. It's cool. It's a little bit different. They're starting to expand the sound. It's cool. It's not as classic as the first 2, but I still like it a lot. They did a 4th album called 4. I forget what year it came out, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. It was not, I didn't like it. I think there was one song to lead it off that was okay, and the rest, it seemed kind of flat, and I don't think Steven Wilson had a ton of input on it. But then in 2015, actually I think it came out in 2016, but they did 5. And this is a really good return to form. This might be their 3rd best album. You got Alan Parsons helping with some of the production and arrangements. This is a really good album, great sounding album. And then just, I think in 2020, maybe it came out technically this year, but they put out something called For the Music, which I hate to say it, I love the project, but it sounds atrocious. So, I didn't bother to listen to that. I guess Stephen Wilson's on there, but it sounded like an Aviv Geffen pop album. It had nothing to do with the previous Blackfield. But you know, certainly check out the first two in the video. And if you like that, I would check out the third one. You can check out the fourth one, maybe something that sticks with you more than it did with me. The fifth album's great, and the sixth album just doesn't even sound, I don't even know why they gave it the Blackfield name. It doesn't sound like anything Blackfield related, but still, cool project. And then the fifth one, I kind of singled out 5 bands, but they only did one album, but it's Storm Corrosion, 2012. I mean, it's Michael Ockerfeld and Stephen Wilson, and it's so eerie and unorthodox and totally what you wouldn't expect them to come up with. But yet, I'm not surprised. It's just really moody. There's no drums except Gavin Harrison plays through it, like what it sounds like through a telephone, through one part of one of the songs. But the songs are eerie, dark and eerie without being like evil or anything. But it's just a strange listen. You got to be in the mood for it. But when I am in the mood for it, it's an excellent album, Storm Corrosion. It'd be awesome if they would do another one here during this downtime, because you know, that would just be incredible. So if anybody can get the word out, do another Storm Corrosion album. If Liquid Tension can do another album after 22 years, I think Storm Corrosion, I think these two guys could find maybe a little bit of time here. All right, I guess I'll go back to the beginning. I was trying to figure out how far back side project supergroups go, and I found this album here. Hopefully there's no glare. Actually, I'll just take it out of here. Return to Forever. I think this came out in '74. A Romantic Warrior. It's got Chick Corea, Stanley Clark. I think Tony Williams was on here too. No, Lenny White. Okay, Lenny White. But there's Al Di Meola, and I'm a huge Al Di Meola fan. He was like what Neil Peart was to 70s precision drumming. Al Di Meola was to 70s precision guitar playing. But I don't know if this is a side project supergroup. It's certainly a supergroup, but I think this was their main band at the time. So if it's your main band, I don't know if they constitute as a side project or not. But I think this was qualifies because I think this was all they did together. But Al Di Meola, John McLaughlin, and Paco de Lucia do Friday Night in San Francisco, and this is killer. I mean, this is a super group of acoustic players, you know, just doing sort of a, you know, one-off, or at least just one tour and nothing more. So that's pretty cool. And there's Al back in the day with the beard and the glasses. He looks younger now than he did back when he was in his 20s. But yeah, big fan of Al Di Meola. Here's definitely an early side project supergroup from '78. You've got UK. You know, you've got Bill Bruford, incredible drummer. Yes, Crimson, South for Genesis. Alan Holdsworth, the fusion guitar player. John Wetton of King Crimson and Roxy Music and all that stuff. And then you got Eddie Jobson of Frank Zappa and whoever else he was in. So this definitely qualifies as a side project supergroup. It's just a bummer they only did 2 albums. Bruford and Holdsworth left after the first, and that hurts because those are my 2 favorite guys in the band. And they got Terry Bozzio though to do drums, and they reduced to a 3-piece. But there you go, UK. Can't forget about them. Okay, moving on. I didn't grab another disc, but I'll talk about it. I should have probably grabbed it, but I think this constitutes as a side project, certainly a supergroup, but Arch Matheos. So John Arch, formerly of Fates Warning, who went away for several years, teams back up with Jim Matheos, and on this album, it's just great progressive metal. What is it, 6 songs? It's awesome. Bobby Jarzombek's on drums, so it's basically Fates Warning with John Arch. It's basically all of Fates Warning alumni here, basically minus Ray Alder. But this is a side project supergroup because I think Fates Warning is the main thing going on here. But John Arch sounds incredible. This one's even more of a supergroup side project because you've got contributions from Mark Zonder comes back in. You've got Steve DiGiorgio plays bass on a few tracks. Who else? There was a litany of guys playing a little bit here, a little bit there. Sean Malone of Cynic and Gordian Knot comes in here. Joey Tobias comes back in. Thomas Lang, great drummer, I think, from Austria, who tried out for Dream Theater. Matt Lynch is on here. I think he played in Cynic, and he's been in some other. I've seen his name pop up here and there too. So yeah, Arch Matheos. And I didn't pull out the John Arch EP from '04, but that was cool because that was his first return from anywhere. Did 2 long songs, kind of with this lineup, but it had Mike Portnoy on drums, of course, and Joey Vera on bass, and Jim Matheos on guitar. So I'm a huge fan of Arch Matheos. OSI. We heard Liquid Tension Experiment's new song earlier, before this. Here's an awesome band. This is a side project because I think these guys had other things going on, but Planet X, this is really the only album from them I get into. They did some stuff early on with Tony McAlpine as the guitar player, but he's not here on this. But this is Derek Sherinian, ex-Dream Theater, with Virgil Donati. They've got Jimmy Johnson on. This is basically that band at this point. They did have Tony McAlpine, but yeah, there's Jimmy Johnson, Greg Garson. There's Alan Holdsworth. He provides these awesome fusiony solos on the song Desert Girl, which I think we'll hear later, in The Thinking Stone. This is a great album. I read Mike Mangini said this is one of the most influential drumming albums of his lifetime. Came out in '07. I can't speak for the earlier material as much, but this album in particular really speaks to me. It's just 9 awesome songs. You think the momentum, you're like, well, that was 4 awesome songs in a row, but they can't do 5 in a row. They do it the whole way. Every song on here, kicks ass. So Planet X, Quantum. I can't speak for the other work they did, but this album in particular is great. You got Sherinian, Virgil Donati, Jimmy Johnson on bass, guest appearance by Alan Holdsworth. Very awesome. I think this is a side. See, some of this is a gray area. Is this a side project? Or is this the main band? But you've got Alkaloid from Bavaria, from Munich, Germany. They've got 2 albums out. You've got a lot of ex-members of Obscura on here, and you've got the main guy from Morian from Dark Fortress, which is like a progressive black and death metal band, all from the Bavaria area. You got Danny Tunker. He's played in a few bands. I guess Aborted was one. A few other bands, but yeah. Let me see who is in the. Yeah, Christian Munzer, who's actually back in Obscura, so that would make this his other band. Hannes Grossman, formerly of Obscura. Linus Lischenauzer, the bass player, formerly of Obscura. And again, Morian, whose main band is Dark Fortress. So I would say this constitutes as a side project supergroup. Although I'm sure if it took off, they would make this the main thing. But just awesome. It's like if Cynic's Focus met Morbid Angel's Covenant. Those 2 albums from '93. So you get this progressive vocoder, clean channel vocals, but you definitely get the God of Emptiness and a lot of that Morbid Angel Covenant era. So I'm a big fan of Alkaloid. And staying in Bavaria, Germany, Stefan Kummerer of Obscura, the main guy of Obscura, has a side project where he gets to do his black and death metal thing called Falkandra, and this is total dissection worship. And I love dissection. I don't know if I'm in the way, but there's the poster, Storm of the Lights Bane. The Somberlin and Storm of the Lights Bane, those first 2 albums are just absolute classics. And not only does this sound just like total dissection worship from those 2 albums from that era, but they cover the song The Somberlin to end it, and it's awesome. So I'm a big fan of this first album. I think they've done 2 other albums that are cool, but I don't know, there's some vibe on here that you only hear on this one. They keep it kind of fast and loose. I think he said, one of these projects, kind of like Liquid Tension, he's like, we didn't overthink it. You just write it and you just go with it. You don't analyze it too much. So this is awesome. If you love early dissection, Stefan from Obscura's side project is all about that. Okay, I think I'm going to pause it there for just one moment. Actually, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. But at some point, I'm going to have to pause here. We're on a nice roll here. So here we go. The next one, I guess nobody really knows about these guys, but I've got Nova Collective. This came out on Metal Blade Records. It's called The Further Side. It's total some sort of modern day fusion. It's got Richard Henshaw from Haken. He's brilliant. You've got what's his name? The bass player from Between the Buried and Me. Dan Briggs. Matt Lynch on drums. I don't know if he's in Cynic to this day. I don't really know the status of Cynic at this point, with all of the members kind of no longer with us. But and then you've got the original keyboard player from Haken, who I don't even think was on the first album, but he was there in the early days. So you've got the guys from Haken, Between the Buried and Me, and a little bit of the Cynic thing, but it's just total fusion-y stuff. If we go long enough, and I put about 50 minutes of music here because this one's gonna go long, you'll hear the song Error to end this. But I thought this is a cool album that nobody talks about. So the Nova Collective. By the way, we just heard Blackfield, and what's fading in quietly is Storm Corrosion. Is this a solo album or a side project supergroup? All I know is it's Frederick Thordendal's Special Defects. So this was between Destroy, Erase, Improve and Chaosphere from Meshuggah. He put this out between those albums. And the reason it's kind of a supergroup is because you've got Morgan Agren on drums. And Morgan Agren's worked with Devin Townsend Project and Magma. He worked on the latest Magma album. But you see his name pop up in just all kinds of places. Avant-garde, prog, crushing, genty, deathly heavy stuff too. So is it a side project? Supergroup, kind of, because, Frederick's main band is Meshuggah. You could argue it's a solo album, but it's got Morgan Agren on drums. It's cool. If you haven't heard that and you're jonesing for more Meshuggah, this is awesome. I'm starting to think this isn't a side project supergroup because, one, it's just Mariusz Duda from Riverside, but it's Lunatic Soul, and it's basically just him. I think he has a drummer who's played in like Sodom, comes in and does a little bit of session work, but I don't think this is a side project for Mariusz. I think he views this as just as vitally important as Riverside at this point. But whether it is or not, it's just an excuse for me to, hype a little bit of Lunatic Soul. I've already done a ranking on him. But awesome band. Atmospheric, progressive, folky, atmospheric, all those things. A little bit of electronic. Actually, I'm moving through this pretty well. I don't think this wasn't a side project supergroup, but by the time they went to record it, the band had already broken up. So how often do you see a band that breaks up, but then they go back in the studio to record an album with an additional member that, in my opinion, makes it a supergroup? And I think what also makes it a supergroup is that what these guys went on to do. And I'm talking about, and we're talking old school death metal grindcore, but Terrorizer, World Downfall. So the band broke up, but they said, okay, we'll get back together. Well, let's get David Vincent on bass for Morbid Angel. Jesse Pintato's about to head to Napalm Death. Pete Sandoval, I don't know if he was in Morbid Angel at this point or not, but he's about to join Morbid Angel. I'm not sure where Oscar went, but you've got David Vincent coming in to help out. At that point, it's a supergroup, and it sounds like they were already focused on Morbid Angel, Pete and David, and Jesse's about to leave for Napalm Death. So, in my opinion, this is a side project supergroup, and what a killer album. And I should have brought this one out, but speaking of grindcore around this time, Mitch Harris of Righteous Pigs, American grindcore, joined forces with Mick Harris of Napalm Death to do a side project grindcore band called Defecation, and that's how Mick Harris ended up ultimately joining Napalm Death as well, when they sort of overhauled their lineup from the 80s and into the 90s. But there you go, there's a little bit of side project supergroup talk from early death metal grindcore. But there you go, Terrorizer, great classic album. Well, I'll move these around since we were talking death metal. I don't know if anybody knows who these guys are. They just did the one album in like 2010, but Flesh Rot. I don't know if you can see how it's spelled, Flesh Rot. But it's Johnny Davey of Job for a Cowboy. I don't I don't really know too much about Job for a Cowboy. I see that metalcore, deathcore thing, and obviously whenever you see that kind of terminology, you get a little turned off. But I don't know. I've got their album Sun Eater, and it sounds like progressive death metal. It's got fretless bass. His death metal vocals are great. He does all kinds of different looks with that. So his vocals on here are sick. He's awesome. And everything else, the programming, the guitars, the drums are done by Naveen Koperweiss. I guess I'm saying that right, but he's extremely talented, and he played on the second Animals as Leaders album, sort of around the same time, so he's pretty awesome. So to me, this is a side project supergroup, and I wish they'd do another album. But this is crazy. It's avant-grind. Songs are, they're just blasting away. The songs are short, then suddenly a jazz saxophone comes in out of nowhere. It's just unpredictable and brutal and cool. So Flesh Rot. It's called Dementia/Dyslexia. Pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, I guess we'll pause there since I don't have any more necessarily any more brutal death metal. So I think we'll pause there, and oh yeah, I'll do my trick. So we'll pause there, and we'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, moving on. This is what I got. This is what I have left right here. Okay, this is the only one in here that I'm gonna. I've mentioned before my love of the dark ambient stuff, especially from the Cryo Chamber label, and I did mention this. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, the passing of Mount Shrine, but he did this collaboration with Alpha Zone called Dream Chambers in 2020. It's just incredible. To me, this is a side project supergroup for sure. This is the only ambient one I'll be reviewing, I think, but it's a good one. So if you're at all into the ambient stuff, obviously everything here is rock-based, heavy and proggy, but there you go. There's your representation of the atmospheric stuff. Okay. Oh, here's one. This is more mainstream, I guess. I love this band. This album didn't sell anything. I think these guys got frustrated. I think I heard that I knew somebody that saw them on tour at Pops in Sauget, Illinois, and nobody was there. And I think they got frustrated. They put out a really good album and nobody paid attention to it. But it's Army of Anyone from '06. This has the DeLeo brothers from Stone Temple Pilots. It's got Ray Luzier from, he's in Korn now, but he was playing, I guess, in David Lee Roth. He was like a hired gun drummer, kind of like Mike Portnoy-ish. And you've got Richard Patrick, the vocalist from Filter. And I thought this album sounds awesome. It's got it sounds like Filter and Stone Temple Pilots. It's got this cool Led Zeppelin-y sound with Richard's cool Filter type vocals. I dig this album, and nobody paid attention, so they just were like, well, why continue this project if nobody cares? And so Stone Temple reformed, and Filter reformed, and Ray got his gig with Korn, so this was the only album they did. But I love Army of Anyone. It's great. Every song on here is catchy. I guess while we're on this, I wrote some of these down, but while we're in this era, some of the other mainstream supergroup side projects, supergroups, I don't know if they're side projects. Was Audio Slave with Chris Cornell and the guys from Rage Against the Machine? That wasn't a side project, was it? That was their band for a time. I think Rage Against the Machine were on hiatus at the time, and I think so were Soundgarden, so it's hard to call that a side project. It was definitely a supergroup. Temple of the Dog, that was Chris Cornell and Matt Cameron, so you had a couple guys from Soundgarden and a bunch of guys, like almost entirely Pearl Jam, so you had that side project supergroup. Mad Season had Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, and then you had at least Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, somebody from the Screaming Trees, so you could argue that Mad Season was a side project supergroup too. But there you go. Oh, I forgot another band, Sons of Apollo. I don't really listen to them, but obviously another Mike Portnoy band. He's got, you got Billy Sheehan on bass, you got Bumblefoot on guitars, Derek Sherinian on keyboards, Jeff Scott Soto on vocals. I mean, that is a supergroup, and it constitutes as a side project because I think every one of those guys has other bands they're working with. I mean, Mike's doing Winery Dogs too with Billy Sheehan and Richie Kotzen. So Mike Portnoy, by the way, Mike Portnoy is the king of side project supergroups. But anyway, so there you go. That's my little mainstream one there is Army of Anyone from '06. Here's, again, is this their side project? I feel like these guys all have other things going on, but I've got the Aristocrats. So I'm a huge fan of Stephen Wilson, Porcupine Tree. Well, Guthrie Govan and Marco Miniman were in that band together at the same time, and I saw them live at Park West in Chicago during the Raven That Refused to Sing. Oh, so much talent. But they get Brian Beller on bass here, and they crank this out. And I would say that this is it's a super group, and I didn't say it's a side project because I see Marco Miniman is in like a zillion bands as well, and you see Guthrie Govan pop up here and there too. So, but this is the only one I have from them, Culture Clash. It's cool, it's impressive. I don't know if it's totally my cup of tea, but Guthrie Govan and Marco Miniman alone, I mean, anytime those guys play, they're so virtuosic, it's just awesome to hear what they can come up with. So, Aristocrats, there you go. I don't know what you call this, like, goofy, funny, fusion, technical, impressive, all those things. Okay, I think this was a side project, Exvius, from the Netherlands, from Holland. This first album, so you had Timon Timon and Robin from Cynic during the Traced in Air cycle. So they were in the band during the Traced in Air album. And you had Steph Brooks on drums. He was in Textures. It was an awesome band. I ranked them. Nobody knows about it, but I forget who the other guy was in here. They had another guitar player, but to me, this first Exvius album from '09, this was a super group. This was guys from Cynic and a guy from Textures coming together to make awesome instrumental, technical, progressive, metal, fusion, all that stuff. On the second album, the last one they did, it was still Timon and Robin, but this time they get Yuma van Ekkelen. He was, right before this, he was on a Pestilence album. So they get the drummer from Pestilence at the time. And then after that, they broke this band up and became a proper band. But I think Exvius to me always felt like a side project supergroup. So if you like, instrumental, technical, progressive, metal, fusion-y stuff, Exvius. Here you go. Magna Carta, this came out in '98. Explorers Club, Age of Impact. Listen to this listing of players. So this was spearheaded by the Gardner brothers of the band Magellan. But you've got Terry Bozzio makes an appearance, Billy Sheehan makes an appearance, Trent and Wayne Gardner, Brett Douglas, vocalist Matt Bradley, James LaBrie, T.C. Cooper, John Petrucci makes a guest appearance, Steve Howe makes a guest appearance, Derek Sherinian, James Murphy, one of my favorite guitar heroes. A few other people I don't recognize their name, but this is one of those where the Gardner brothers wrote some music and they had almost anyone they could find add to it. So Explorers Club, Age of Impact from the '90s. Ah yes, another classic. So the late Sean Malone. When Cynic ended, he did Cortland. It was like a solo album, but he did this, Gordian Knot. This was his baby, Gordian Knot. And this first album's great. The second one's good too, but the first one. So here are the guest appearances on here, and again, just from '98, '99, just progressive metal, instrumental, just really good. But you've got Trey Gunn. He plays that war guitar in the stick from King Crimson. So you got Trey Gunn. John Mayung of Dream Theater, Sean Reinert, the late Sean Reinert of Cynic, adding some drums. I know there are more guest appearances on here than that, but Ron Jarzombek of Watchtower provides some solos. But just a really impressive. Well, yeah, there's the whole lineup. Glenn Snellwar, I don't know who he is, but some people might know who he is, but he's on here too. But that Gordian Knot, that first album I listened to that a lot. Whenever I couldn't get enough Liquid Tension Experiment, I would reach for Gordian Knot. And then the second album he did, the second and final album he did, is this project. He basically brings back almost everybody from Cynic. Jason Goebel of Cynic comes back. Steve Hackett of Genesis comes in here and guests. Sean Reinert on drums. Bill Bruford makes a guest appearance. Paul Masvidal's on here. Jim Matheos of Fate's Warning gets in here, probably because OSI, which is Matheos' project, invited Sean Malone into that for the first album. So, let's see, did I forget anybody else? Yeah, that's cool. I forgot Hackett was on here. But there you go. So Gordian Knot was one of those original awesome side project supergroups. I guess this is a supergroup. It's definitely a side project. So Arjen Lucassen of Arion, he did this one album in 09 I kind of like called Guilt Machine. And he's got his, I don't know if he's married to her or if she's his girlfriend still, but he's got his Lori, no, I can't see her last name or pronounce it, but his girlfriend at the time, Lori's on guitars, he's on guitars and keyboards. They got a singer out of Belgium. But what makes this, I think, a supergroup is that Chris Maitland, the original Porcupine Tree drummer, and also drummed on the first Blackfield album, is on here as the drums, which is surprising because Porcupine Tree kind of was metallic at times, but that wasn't really their cup of tea. But this is a pretty heavy album, and Chris Maitland's doing the drums for that, so I thought that was pretty cool. So you've got Arjen from Holland, his girlfriend who's American. You've got Jasper, the singer, from Belgium, and you've got Chris Maitland from England. So this is cool. Side project supergroup, Guilt Machine. It's called On the Perfect Day. And then I guess we'll wrap it up here with, I don't know when the second one came out. These were old too. They came out in like 99 and 2000, but does anybody remember the band Platypus? I'm not saying these are great, but they were kind of cool. Check out this lineup. You've got Rod Morgenstein on drums, John My Young on bass, Ty Tabor of King's X on guitar, and Derek Sherinian, who I think was an ex-Dream Theater person at this point, on keyboards. And they did When Puss Comes to Shove. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. But again, you've got like a Dream Theater, King's X, and whatever Rod Morgenstein's been in, that wasn't Winger. But it's kind of cool. This one is a little less memorable, but it's that same lineup. And then they continued on as a three-piece. Derek Sherinian dropped off, and the other three guys continued as the Jelly Jam. And so this is a little closer to like, whereas these were a little bit more progged out, leaning a little bit more towards the Dream Theater end of the spectrum. The Jelly Jam leads way more towards the Ty Tabor, King's X end of the spectrum here. Once Derek Sherinian kind of stepped out and there are keyboards, it got a lot more King's X-y on here. So I think that covers everything. I must have gone through 25 to 30 bands here. But there you have it. I think I talked about my top ones and made sure to play all those. It was, Liquid Tension Experiment, Transatlantic, and OSI, and Blackfield, and Storm Corrosion, and Arch Matheos, and Gordian Knot, and all the others. But, I didn't see anybody else do an episode like this, and I'd been wanting to do this for several months. And then once the Transatlantic album arrived, the new Transatlantic for the first one in like 7 years arrives, and then the Liquid Tension Experiment album arrives for the first time in 22 years, and you're just absolutely, just blown away by how they can just pick up right where they left off. And, I had this fear that I would set the bar so high for a new Liquid Tension Experiment album that it would disappoint, and it has not disappointed, and it's been great. And I love how they had that second disc of nothing but improvisations. So there you go. That is not ranking the albums, but just showcasing over 24, possibly 30 different, what I would call side project supergroups. So this is Nova Collective ending it. But so there you go. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.